Dick Harmon speaking at Salt and Light Lutheran, September 27, 2020.
Some background for some of the newer people that we've not yet met. We've been married 63 years in December, and two children and three grandchildren, three grandchildren and four great grandchildren. And for 35 years, Carol taught preschool children and their teachers. I'm 12 years retired from 45 years of community organizing. We come to you through Redeemer and then through its transition into Salt and Light and Living. This is a reflection on some of the major events in our family over the last 60 days. There are connections here for your imagination to work on with the Emmaus story. I hope they will be obvious. This is about life and death and dying. It is about recovery. It's about garden and community and vision. In early August, our daughter rushes me to the ER at Kaiser, Sunnyside, for emergency surgery on a stomach hernia. 3 days in, I'm fine. I come out mostly fully recovered. During my stay, Tasha is my only visitor because of COVID. She also brings Carol to live with her while she cares for her husband who has Parkinson's and tries to make a little bit of money on the side with her work. In the hospital, my big question is whether I'll be strong enough to continue being Carol's primary caretaker. At home, I resume my caretaker role while Carol battles with congestive heart failure, which is creating high blood pressure and excess fluids in her legs. Very painful, hard to get around, lots of fatigue. 2 weeks later, I rush Carol to the same ER at Sunnyside. The next 3 weeks become a blur of nurses, CNAs, docs, labs, and IVs. 2 stints at Kaiser, Sunnyside, and a long stretch at 2 OHSU locations. In each hospital, I'm Carol's only visitor. In her room and in meal breaks during the day, I'm reflecting on our lives together, how much she, along with our congregations, has taught me about love, about basic trust, the new life of children, recovery from addiction, entry into caretaker with loss of control over my schedule. At each step, moving me deeper into the particulars of our creative and compassionate cosmos. From each hospital, I drive home about 7 each night and return about 10 every morning. And in the light of each late evening and early morning, I'm walking and standing in our back garden. The plants and I are regarding. We are regarding each other. We are speaking with each other about our lives. Now, in our tour of hospitals, Carol develops tremors and delirium. At OHSU Hillsborough, she retreats into 3 days and nights of unshakable sleep, rejecting staff and food. I'm anxious. Late afternoon on the 3rd day at Hillsborough, the docs press me to make the big decision about, quote, heroic care if she starts to slip away. I call Tasha for support. She talks on my cell phone with the doc. To get the picture, Tasha reminds me that our family made this decision about 20 years ago. I respond that that was a left brain decision, and right now we're in a right brain situation. She waits for me, and I let out, okay, I'll sign. I turn back to the doc and say, no heroic measures. She's at the computer. The document about Carol's life and death is up on the screen, waiting for the doc and I to sign. I know Carol is right behind us. I'm asking my soul, will she come out of this? The print on this computer screen is swimming. I can't focus. My right side is ablaze with anxiety. The doc guides my hand over the mouse. I'm trembling and incompetent. She helps me sign. I turn around to my left. Carol has not moved. I turn to my left again toward the light of the hospital room's window. It pulls me closer so I can see out and over to the cluster of green of the trees of Hillsborough, blending into the forest and fields beyond the city. I experience in my body that Carol and I are part of that green, that place of creation of Mother Earth. Carol and I are not separated from the whole or from each other. That evening, driving home to Selwood, I'm numb to the cars and signs around me. The radio is quiet. I'm working with my own news. At home, I'm standing in the garden. All spring and summer, I have come to see the marvelous complexity of the geraniums, the ocean spray, Chinese dogwood, the daisies, Rosa Sharon, the vegetables and berries all overrun by nasturtiums. The radical relationality among the tens of thousands of connections in this garden, each helping to transform CO2 into oxygen, making it possible for Carol and I and every living creature to breathe, each helping to enrich the plant's roots and soil's nutrients. Many messages and their nutrients are carried by the pollinators, all making and serving a community from well before the time when the earliest people walked and worked, emerged from and returned into this soil. This particular night, September 4th, from the hardest of days for Carol, I speak my heart to my friends in this garden. You are in the autumn of your lives. So are Carol and I. When their branches or stems, blossoms or leaves begin to pull back, then let go, then fall to soil, they return to their creative ground. Each is a nurse plant, feeding, enriching soil and plant roots, contributing to the great universal cycle of life, death, and rebirth. In our Western culture, we are afraid of death because we think we're separated from Mother Earth. Our burial rituals aim to preserve our bodies, protect them from composting, keep them separated from creation's great processes. For plants, falling to and into earth is good, not bad, loving, not fearful. Bodies returning, composting into earth are participating in eternal life. Carol and I have chosen together to return to compost. Everything in our garden, in earth, and in the cosmic process feeds everything else. Existence is mutual feeding or sacrifice, the opposite of Roman or contemporary political economy and culture. Jesus Christ personalized. He personalized that universal reality of mutual feeding and rejects the political economy of everything is for sale. The next morning, I cut a rose stem from the bush that Carol has named for Johanna, her mother. This stem carries a deep red, beautiful, fragrant blossom. I place it in water in a slender vase and stick it in the car. In the Hillsborough Hospital, Carol is still sleeping. I bring out the rose and place it just under Carol's nose. No response. I repeat the action every 20 minutes or so. Just before noon, I have my face close to Carol. She opens her eyes and smiles. She knows who I am. Then she goes back to sleep. Over the afternoon, she wakes briefly for me 2 more times. And the next morning, she's wide awake. We are hugging and kissing. She loves smelling the rose. 2 days later, Carol is demanding to go home. Rob, our son, has come down and he and I have driven together out to Hillsborough. Carol is setting up, she's ready to go. The docs have her system in balance. They have their exit papers. Her sleeping has healed the trauma of too much time in hospitals and too many meds. A nurse's aide grabs the rose and tosses it in a throwaway bag. I grab it back, place it in the vase, and it comes home with us. The next day, I place the well-used rose at the foot of its mother's bush. We're at home. Carol is settling into this place she knows. The first afternoon, our son Rob and Tosh are with us in the back garden. We are all welcome among the plants. But the winds come through, and then the smoke from fires induced by the climate chaos that we have induced. Yet despite all this, here comes the community of Leaven and Salt and Light. Solveig and Nancy asking and listening. Michael B. with fans and filters. Then food and or conversation from John Rogers, Ali and Bill, Jocelyn Forbush, Spencer and Ilana, Mike Hogan, Arvella, David. Images emerge in me of new communities, organized for survival, organizing food, transportation, health, housing, mutual aid, mutual feeding. Also images of a new power analysis, a vision of constituencies, but that's for another occasion. Early this week, Carol begins to get more exercise. She starts sorting and reorganizing in the house. And Wednesday evening, she's out front sweeping fallen leaves off the sidewalk. Neighbors come by, they chat, She keeps sweeping, and I get angry. She's taking too much risk out there. She's taking too much time. I go out. She tells me what to do to complete the job. We finish, and we go inside. And then I realize she is breaking out of being taken care of, which of course disrupts my hard-earned self-image of caretaker. She's agitating me to let go a bit, to grow a little. So she's still teaching me about maturing love. We are still feeding each other, still helping to feed and being fed by our human community and our own elders and by Mother Earth and the cosmic elders. Thank you.